Hi, I'm Michael Joy. This is a quick story in absolute joy, a business talk about how I bought a Bentley sight unseen, and then I drove it across the country right away. Oh my God. A moment of caution. So I'm not really into cars, but this story is about buying a luxury vehicle sight unseen. There's probably a couple storylines in here. One of them is maybe not be the best idea to do it the way I did it, but the way I did it worked out for me in a great way. So there's no downside to this. It's just hardly a recommendation. Let me tell you what happened. Really a guy that's into cars. However, my wife got me into this show, Breaking Bad, and for some reason or another, I was binge watching this for a series of weeks, probably. I don't know, they had a lot of episodes. And towards the end, there was one of the characters was driving inside this car that I just thought, oh my God, it's the most beautiful interior I've ever seen. What is this car? What is this car? I barely knew what a Bentley is, or could be. As soon as I learned about what it was, I started looking up on the internet about these cars, and I was like, oh my God, these are exquisite. So I, along the line, decided that I would look into buying a Bentley. And of course, brand new, they're out of my price range, but it turns out that there's a used market for these cars, as there are any high-end luxury cars, except all those markets are flooded with warnings of, here's why you should never do it, and all these cautionary tales. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna look through that. I'm gonna do my own research. I watched a lot of videos and I looked at a lot of pricing, and I found a car in Arizona, which was great because my mom lives in Arizona, and I thought, okay, I can do this cross-country thing. I go out there, buy the car, pick it up, and drive it back to Illinois. Okay, the who, what, where, and when. We are in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's May 2nd, 2021.
It's May 3rd.
Okay, the May 3rd, thank you. I bought a car without ever seeing it before, without ever driving it or the like.
So you kind of liked it?
I hit that like and subscribe button and I bought a Bentley. So we're gonna go see the Bentley right now, which is all. Now I have to learn how to drive it, how to start it, how to open the doors, and then we're gonna drive it across the country, and with a prayer, the Bentley wing and a prayer. Car report was it never was in the Midwest. There's no rust or anything like that. Well, it turns out nobody drives these cars in bad weather anyways, so rust is really not a problem for these vehicles. Because I had a car dealer that I actually really trusted after many conversations, my sister and mom were in Arizona and I sent them over to the dealer. And this was a small dealer. They do not usually handle Bentleys. It was not this type of thing where they either fake ignore you in the lobby or they fake bring you coffee. This was just a regular car place, and they'd happened on this car in a car auction with a couple other ones, and it turned out to be a good one. My mom and Amy went out there and they saw the car, and I asked them, I said, well, what was it like? And they're like, oh, when they brought the car around, it was like this panther coming in. My mom was like, it was so beautiful. And my sister's like, Sam, my sister's like my read on people. She tells me, and she goes, I really trusted that guy. She's like, I had a good feeling. And that was as important to me as my mom going, this car is amazing. I bought the car. Before doing that, we had to go through a few steps, get the car checked out, this, that, and the other. So we sent the car over to another vintage car person, and they came back with a laundry list of things that had to be fixed to the tune of more than $10,000. And I told the dealer that, and they're like, this is nuts. And I said, yeah, I think it is. So the dealer agreed to fix most of the issues, and I agreed to handle one or two that seemed like they would take longer to deal with because they had already tried, but they weren't getting parts, et cetera, et cetera. I said, you know what? If the car is drivable, it's safe, and that vacuum problem isn't a big deal, I'll get it dealt with here. The other thing I did before buying that car was I made sure I had a mechanic in Illinois, because people told me, hey, you need to have somebody well qualified to work on this. And I talked to a couple companies in advance, and I really quickly learned that I didn't want to work with the dealership in this instance because I felt very vulnerable going to the dealer, and I felt like I could work with this other mechanic. So not bashing the dealers, I'm just saying that I chose a different route. It turned out to be a great trip. I go out there, Katya came with me. We went to the dealer, picked up the car, and I'm kind of like, wow, walking around the car, I think I've never had anything like this before. I've had old Volvos, I've had old vans, I've had all sorts of old stuff. And this car was not brand new, it was a 2012, but I looked into it and I thought, this is the reviews and things that I read about said, oh, you'll have Bluetooth. And so it was old, but not irrelevant. When we went to pick it up, You know, there's all these knobs and levers, and it looks like you're inside of a yacht. We took it for a test drive, and well, I already owned it, so it was like, I guess it's technically a first drive. And I pulled out very carefully. They had this enclosed garage, and I put my hand out the window to wave goodbye to Sam, who was really cool. And I reached down and I was closing the window and pulling away. I popped the trunk. I'm like, well, the car was waving goodbye too, but I just thought, oh my God, what if I'd done that at 80 miles an hour, you know? It turns out that trunk was an issue later, but only because of my creating. But we were driving the car, and I had no idea how much power a Bentley had. And I came out, and I was at the light, and I stepped on the accelerator, and that car leaped. And Katya was like, what? She's like, don't do that, baby, don't do that. I'm like, I don't really know what I did, but that was kind of neat. And I was a little scared at the same time. But we drove around, and I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. Drove the car home and put it in the driveway of my mom's townhouse. And of course, the neighbors are like, you know, looking, you know, she started, a couple of her girlfriends, she's like, well, whose car is that? Whose car is that? Now, a Bentley, this is the Continental GT Flying Spur. That's the 4-door. It's beautiful, but not flashy. The 2 doors are a little sporty, they're little rockets of delight. This car happens to be almost as fast, but you can have passengers. And in the back, it's like a limousine. You know, there's trays that come down, and I thought, this is what I want. I want a car that I can have friends and family seated in the back. And the GT Continental, there's back seats. Technically, there's leather back there, but you can't, you'll end up sitting like this. And I just thought, that's not for me. So we had already planned our route. Katya had already made arrangements at various hotels, and we were going to hit our mark in a very easy pace across the country. And I thought, in my mind, I thought, well, if we have any trouble, I'll just have the car towed, and we'll have it shipped back, and we'll fly back, and you know, it'll be what it is. Driving this car was so fantastic. It was, I'm talking louder now than we have to talk into the car when you're sitting next to somebody. You can talk like this, and you can be the road noise, and you don't, you know, oh. And then if you decide to listen to the music, it is immersive. And it's not a sloppy sound either, because you can have it really loud in the car, and it's not loud outside the car. I call that sloppy music. This was a tight little immersive cabin.
And the stars look very different today. Oh, here am I sitting in the
And I remember a couple times driving across some of the plains of Kansas or something, and my mom would be in the back with the pillow and her legs out. And, you know, she had the most comfortable ride of the whole time. But it was just a pure pleasure, and it was also a discovery, because other times that I have driven across the country, it was about getting there fast. And although this car could drive really fast, and I probably could have set some records, this was about, it was this integration time. It was me getting used to, yeah, I have a car like this. Even when we stopped at the gas stations in these small towns along the way, nobody really noticed the car. I wasn't demanding that they notice the car until I started it. A Bentley starts elegantly. It has a zzz. It's a fantastic sound, well designed. Good job, Bentley. And people turn. They notice that because it doesn't have any high-pitched whine to it. It's the essence of, I've arrived and I'm about to leave at the same time, is what it sounds like when that car goes. And the profile and the engine, the profile is so smooth, you can raise and lower this car, and the engine is so smooth that it's not loud. The loudest thing about it is the startup, and that's by design. When we came back, I made sure to have you gotta have a big garage for these cars. You know, they're almost 18 feet long. And if you buy a car without measuring your garage, and that car you don't want outside in a hailstorm or any issues whatsoever. Now, had I timed this perfectly, in a perfect world, I would put a radar detector in that car and a dash cam before I drove across the country. I didn't really even know that I was vulnerable, because 100 miles an hour in a Bentley feels like 50 in a normal car. The way that that car climbs in speed is at 100, it will just continue to climb. Like it's not almost there. It's like just da, 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 da. It's fantastic. So you can go very fast in a car like this. My mom drove it. She loved it. I was terrified. She's 80. I'm not. I was scared. but she's a pretty good driver. And we got to this one town, this was during COVID, so it's not like there was a lot of places that were restaurants you could stop at. McDonald's you couldn't even use to go to the bathroom. I mean, everything was closed. I'm like, where do you go to the bathroom on a cross-country trip? So we sometimes had to stop and like find places that had bathrooms, and we ended up in this one town. It was kind of, what do I say? It was kind of a dusty, small Western town, all pickup trucks, no Bentleys. And I remember feeling a little uncomfortable there. And this taught me that as good as it feels to drive a car like that, that in certain areas you shouldn't drive a car like that, either because the roads are bad or because of the attention of curiosity that it does get. I never felt like someone was gonna take the car or anything like that. It's not about that. It just feels like I never had somebody give me any attention when I pulled up to a store. And so it was very unfamiliar to me. And I wasn't expecting it, but I did notice it. And I thought, oh, this is maybe something to pay attention to. So we got back to Illinois, as I was saying, and the drive was effortless, except one time an alert came on for tire pressure. And that's when I realized I know absolutely nothing about this car. I don't even think I can change the tire. There's lockout features that you're supposed to do to lock the air suspension. These tires are fancy. I was just like, oh my God, what did I do? We're in the middle of nowhere, and I don't even have a small compressor to charge up the car. I didn't think about that. To charge up the tire, I was like, oh, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? Turns out it was okay, that those sensors are just a little dodgy sometimes, and we went on about our business. Now, Bentley, good thing you fixed this, because I would complain if I was a time traveler about how you have no cup holders in this car. Problem solved. Have a passenger that holds the drink for you. But really, that was a silly mistake that they made for the American market. The thing is you can have a drink between your legs, but if you're turning, anyways, you get the picture. It's awkward. And this is not the type of seat that you want to spill a drink on, because they have massage machines in them. Of course, they're air conditioned and they're cool, and they have all sorts of adjustments. So there is special attention that you should make when driving a car like this. Okay, so as you noticed in the picture, you can see these big cups. Bentleys are not known for cup holders. It's actually under my elbow. So I bought this thing from Amazon, which it's nice to have a big cup here, but it interferes with your turning. So it's a compromise. You can put it on the other side and it's okay, but it might slosh around a little bit. So far, no ideal solution, but the $13 solution is doing pretty good. Just watch your straw. Overall, what can I say is it was fantastic. It was like flying across the country at a very slow rate of speed compared to a jet, but it felt like I was in a private jet. And we just celebrated every moment. Every time we went through a drive-through, every time we pulled up to a hotel, that car was like, it's like the mileage thing wasn't even ticking. This was nothing for this car. And I never hear stories about people driving high-value cars across the country. They're like, that's a point A to point A car. I don't even park it at the grocery store. So apparently this was a little ballsy. I'd say go for it. Take some friends. Everybody up to 5 will be super comfortable in that car. 4 is the right number. And just plan it out. Know who you're gonna call if you have trouble. Have a tow service ready and know their mileage limits. So it was fun.
How many times did you have to fill in the gas tank, to drive from Arizona to here?
I can't remember, 4, 5, 6, 7.
4 and 7 is a big difference.
Well, let me think about that. So it has like a 23 or 5 gallon tank. It's a big tank. In the city, you get 10 miles to the gallon. But on the highway, we got almost 20. And the way to run those cars is you get them in cruise control as fast as you can, and you let the computer decide the amount of fuel, because the foot pushing can really put in more gas than's needed. And when we were on cruise control, 18, 19, 20 across the country. That's almost 400 miles to a tank. It wasn't that many times. I have to tell you, it's because I didn't know how far I was going to get on the tank, and I didn't know if the gas gauge was accurate, that every time I was at half a tank, we stopped. So it was more about that than the fact that the car needed gas. Well, I had 6 gallons of gas in the trunk. I did, because people on the internet were saying these cars take a lot of gas. I'm like, you know, so I had 3 small tanks with premium gas, and that, because I would have had anxiety, and because it was just, look, the car wasn't, you know, what, a day old to me, and then we were on the road, I knew nothing about it. I did have Bentley anxiety. Well, buying a Bentley was not as dodgy as I thought it was going to be. I bought into the hype of the fear. If I hadn't have overcome that, I wouldn't have had these great experiences of stepping into a new type of driving experience. I'm so glad I did it. My personal experience has been fantastic.